Today we're going to be ranking NFL QBs based on who has the most pure throwing power. It seems like almost every QB in the league gets labeled as having an elite arm, but there's only really a small number that have a special level of power relative to the average NFL starting QB. Obviously all these guys have insane arms, but we're comparing them amongst each other. So we have 5 tiers here, the top being the S tier, roof touchers. These are the guys who can casually throw the ball out of the stadium or hit the top of an indoor arena. Then we have noticeable zip for quarterbacks who can consistently throw heaters into tight spots. In the middle, the average tier, guys who have impressive arm strength but just don't stand out amongst NFL quarterbacks. Then lack of zip, guys who have unimpressive fastballs, more finesse throwers. And then finally, we got the noodle arms. These are quarterbacks who don't really have a fastball and are basically all finesse, timing, and accuracy. Now, arm strength is obviously not the most important trait, but it's what we're looking at today. So let's start by putting one guy in each category just as a representative. In S tier, I think we can comfortably put Josh Allen. He's got some of the best power you're ever going to see. He can comfortably hit any roof in the league. Josh consistently makes highlight reel tight window throws, and I don't think anyone would argue his spot in this tier list. In the noticeable zip tier, don't sleep on him. I'm putting in the sophomore Michael Penix. This guy consistently rips balls between deep zones. If you watch a whole Falcons game, you're going to see at least a couple of impressive fastballs. I'll probably throw a couple highlights up in this video, but I think he's a perfect representative for this category. He doesn't have godlike arm strength. He has to step into his throws a bit, but when he does, he tosses some absolute missiles. As far as power goes, he's definitely above average. Now to the average tier, we'll put in Jared Goff, pretty overall average quarterback with an average arm. He can make any throw on the field, even in tight spots, but you won't see a lot of zip on his throws, and rarely will he make a highlight-worthy play with his arm. He's perfectly fine as a quarterback, he just doesn't have one of the better arms in the league. He is very consistent though. In lack of zip, let's put Dak Prescott. He's a great quarterback, great feel for the game, exceptional managing a pocket, but he's just never had an impressive arm. You can probably watch his season-long highlights and you're not going to see any tight window zips. He's still very effective, but I think he's in a tier below guys like Goff. In noodle arm, gotta go with 7th round pick Brock Purdy. If there's anyone on this list who I think would be the least intimidating to go up against in a QB camp, it'd probably be Purdy. He just lacks juice when throwing the ball. He's smart and a plus playmaker, works well in the San Fran offense, but his arm strength is just not too impressive relative to the average NFL starter, which is why he lands here. So now let's go through all the other starters in the league listed below, and obviously we have to start with the mayor of Zip City, a graduate student with the University of Akron Zips, Anthony Richardson. He's got break your fingers type velocity, even though the throw might not end up near your fingers. His accuracy is a bit iffy, but he can throw the ball to the moon. His 70-yard ball to Alec Pierce last season while moving laterally is still one of the best throws I've ever seen. If aliens came down and they requested an 80-yard toss in order to spare the planet, I think AR would be my pick to get the job done. So yeah, he's S tier. Next, Aaron Rodgers, possibly the next quarterback for the Steelers. He definitely had S tier arm strength during his prime, but at this point, I don't know. He's still got the elite release speed and plus arm elasticity, but the power is a bit washed. I think he has to go in the average tier. Last season on the Jets, there were occasional glimpses of that classic Rodgers zip, but they were few and far between. He's just lost some of that strength, but still in a decent spot on this list. He can still sling it. Baker Mayfield, I think he has the longest charted NFL pass attempt ever when he threw a 70-yard Hail Mary out of bounds, which I mean is not really, the point of the Hail Mary. I think because of that, most people would put him in one of the top 2 categories, but I think he's more suited for the average tier. For Baker to get power on his throws, he has to step into it, put his whole body into the throw with a lot of torque. It takes a lot of setup time, and even then, he just can't do it consistently multiple times a game. His fastball is solid, but it just doesn't come naturally to him like the guys in the top 2 tiers, and requires too much setup time for me to put him up there. Next, we got Drake May, another tough one. May's got solid zip, but I don't think he has enough to be compared to a guy like Penix. May fits well in the average tier. He did have some nice tight window throws as a rookie, but his velocity is definitely closer to the other guys in average than it is Penix's. However, his teammate Joe Milton, that guy's S tier. We saw this guy breaking the sound barrier against the Bills last season with some absolute missiles. He's a textbook roof toucher, and even though he's a backup, he has to be included in this video because he's got the goods. Whether he's throwing to Demario Douglas or just taking a visit to the Barstool office, he's got life-altering power. Justin Fields, don't sleep on Fields, man. He's got noticeable zip. He may be wildly inconsistent and take a lot of bad sacks, but he's got some zip on his throws. If you don't believe me, you gotta check the tape. He has to set up a little bit, but he's got consistent juice and can fit the ball into really tight spots. Deshaun Watson, his arm is cooked. He was once above average in the throw power department, but at this point, after his 2023 shoulder surgery, the velocity just isn't there like it once was. There was rarely any juice on his throws last season, and he definitely fits in the lack of zip tier. JJ McCarthy, his arm shined in his small preseason sample last season. He's got noticeable zip. When the ball leaves his hand, you can tell that there's serious juice there. Often corners and safeties are scrambling to close on their zone as JJ's ball reaches his receiver. He's got rare arm power, and it'll be interesting to see how he does next season. Next, we got Bryce Young. He's gonna have to join Purdy. There's a lot of things Bryce brings to the table, but he's definitely more of a finesse player than a rocket arm type of quarterback. Bryce has great anticipation and timing, and it's not easy to perform at an NFL level with his physical traits. If he's slightly late on a read, he doesn't have the arm strength to bail himself out like a Josh Allen does. He's got a mental edge, but also a noodle arm. Will Levis, this is another high-ranking official in Zip City. He has S-tier throw power. Levis, one of the more entertaining players and arms in the league. This guy effortlessly throws bombs all across the field, and he's an established roof toucher. If you put Bryce Young's brain in his body, there'd be a lot of Super Bowls in Tennessee. Let's zoom through a few here. Russell Wilson, he's going in lack of zip. He shows solid arm strength on his high arcing moonballs, but he really doesn't have much zip in his game, and you won't see many tight window throws on his tape. CJ Stroud, I think he's on the upper side of the average tier power. He's got a really smooth, consistent, and quick release and great footwork, and he throws a nice ball, but I wouldn't say he has noticeable zip compared to these other quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, also going to the average tier. He stands tall in the pocket and delivers strikes to his receivers, but on some longer throws, you can see that the ball just doesn't get there overly fast, and sometimes his guys have to wait up a bit, so I can't quite put him higher than this tier. Next, we got Derek Carr. I think the general consensus amongst NFL casual fans is that Carr has a below average arm, but he actually does have solid throwing power. I think he's in the average tier. He makes 50-yard bombs look pretty easy, and he can carve up zone coverages by turning up his velocity. He's not overly zippy, but he's definitely got some, and I think he's overall average. Caleb Williams, I wouldn't quite say that he's a roof toucher, but he's got some noticeable zip. When he wants to thread the needle, he has that ability to add some extra juice to his throws and put the ball in some really small windows with a tight spiral. Justin Herbert, I think he deserves S tier. He similarly like Lawrence likes to stand tall in the pocket and deliver strikes, but he generates more power with less effort. Herbert can just open up his shoulders and throw a steamer no problem basically every play. Very little setup in his game, and it makes him very dangerous to come up against because he's also quick to find weaknesses in defenses. Overall, I would say he's on the lower end of roof touchers. Next, we got Jordan Love. He kind of has the opposite situation of Derek Carr. I think the general consensus is that he has one of the stronger arms in the league, but I think he's more in the average territory. Love has great playmaking ability and can throw from a lot of different arm angles and from off-platform spots, but he just doesn't have the best fastball, and he can't really bail himself out with his arm. He's more of a finesse thrower. Lamar Jackson, a great and super unique thrower of the ball, but not zippy. Lamar has always been a heavy upper body thrower, unlike basically every other quarterback in the league, meaning that on a good amount of his throws, he doesn't use his legs and hips much to generate power. This allowed him to be dangerous when throwing the ball off platform, when his feet aren't set, but it limits the velocity on his passes. He's still able to get solid speed on his balls. He's got a good arm, but I think he can only go on the average tier on this list. Next up, Pat Mahomes. This KC offense has become so bland and non-explosive that people forget the kind of arm that Pat has. He's a certified roof toucher. We saw it at the end of the Super Bowl. All it takes is a small step up in the pocket for him to launch a ball to the moon. If the Chiefs could get some serious wide receivers, then I think we'd see more vintage Mahomes throws. But for now, this is mainly a gadgety finesse offense. But overall, that doesn't change the fact that Mahomes still has elite throw power. Next, we got Joe Burrow, one of the best in the league. Might have won MVP this year if he had a defense. However, the guy's got no zip. He's going in the noodle arm tier. And people might not like that. You know, Joe's got elite processing, top-level accuracy, and very good playmaking ability. But even with all his volume, he has basically no highlight reel throws because his arm power just isn't that good. He wins by being on time to beat a coverage or trusting Chase in a 1v1 or extending a play until someone gets open, but you won't see him carving up a defense with zippy throws. And that's fine, but, you know, it's the truth. Next, we got Sammy Darts, and the name suits him well because this dude, he's got some zip in his game. Minnesota schemed up a lot of open throws for him, but in tight spots, Darnold always has that extra zip he can add to get throws to his receivers. It didn't show up a lot last season, but he used it when he needed to. Darnold's always had impressive arm strength. He just has a lot of holes in the rest of his game. Jalen Hurts, he's going into the noodle arm tier. In terms of just physical strength, Hurts is definitely one of the strongest quarterbacks on this list, but his arm just not so much. He's much more of a finesse thrower, and I mean his supporting cast is great, so he doesn't have to throw many tight window balls, but still Hurts just doesn't have that upper echelon arm to make those heavy throws with little effort. His highlights are filled with running plays and lob passes, and he does a lot of things at a high level, but the arm strength in his throws is just not there. Jaden Daniels, similar to Stroud, but with a little less power. I think he's in the lower end of the average category. He's got a super consistent and quick release, and the ball really jumps out of his hand, but he just doesn't have plus power or a signature fastball he can go to. Next, we got Tua. Noodle arm for sure. He's definitely a finesse thrower. The Miami offense is a lot about timing, a lot of quick turnarounds, hitting in breakers to Waddle and Hill, and then letting them run for an extra 20 yards. He's an accurate quarterback, but he's got noticeably less juice on his throws compared to the other guys on this list. Geno Smith, don't sleep on him. He's got an average arm. When needed, he can put some zip on his throws into tight coverages, but those throws are also a product of him having plus anticipation. He doesn't have overwhelming arm strength where he's just muscling in throws all the time. Matt Stafford, probably an S-tier guy during his prime. I still think he's got some juice and there's some noticeable zip on his throws. He can muscle in sidearms to split zone defenders, and he can just flick his arm and launch the ball to the opposite sideline. To be honest though, he might be at the bottom of this tier at this point in his career. The final two guys we have are Kyler Murray and Bo Nix. I think they're both in the average category. They can both attack tight windows with their arms, but nothing too noticeable compared to the mean. Bo Nix did have some quality throws last year, but he also had plenty of pocket space to step into and load up. You could maybe make an argument for him to move up a tier, but I'll leave him an average. So that's my tier list for NFL QB throw power. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe if you like the content. Thanks for watching, and I'm out.